No, I'm saying hi to you, and we need to get David.
Great, gentlemen, thank you. Welcome. Straight to the time.
That's how we've always done it. All right, my phone is silent. Jennifer?
Okay. Good evening, and welcome to the Dixon Historic Theater. I am Dr. David Hellmich, president of Sauk Valley Community College, and I'm the moderator for tonight's Illinois State Senate District 37 and the Illinois House of Representatives District 74 Candidate Forum, sponsored by Discover Dixon. The election is November 5th, and early voting begins this Thursday, September 26th. Our candidates are Li Arellano, who is running unopposed for the Illinois State Senate District 37 seat, and in ballot order, Brad Fritts and David Simpson, who are running for the Illinois House of Representatives District 74 seat. Candidates, thank you for having the conviction and courage to run in this important election. The candidates have agreed to listen respectfully to each other without interruption, have agreed to respect time limits, and have agreed to refrain from shenanigans, all too common in national candidate forums. Members of the audience, given that we are all courteous Midwesterners, please turn your cell phones to silent and limit your reactions to polite applause after candidates have spoken. Do not interrupt the candidates while they are speaking. The candidates will be given a prescribed amount of time for each segment of tonight's forum. It is important for the candidates and our audience to understand that I will ask the candidates to stay within the allotted time. As a moderator, I will let the candidates know when their time has expired. We will begin with Li Arellano, who will have 3 minutes to give his opening statement. Li.
Thank you.
My name is Li Arellano, or Arellano if you want to get fancy. First of all, I want to start by thanking everyone who came out, everyone who's watching online, and thank you everyone in the Dixon area who has given me their support over the years and the honor to serve as the mayor of Dixon for 8 years. I deeply appreciate it, and I poured my soul into that work. I was the mayor of Dixon for 8 years. I ran as a reformer. I wanted to change the way finances were done. I wanted to change the ethics rules and how we approached government in Dixon, and that's certainly part of my motivation at the state level. I'm very proud of what we've accomplished here. Financially, Dixon has been one of the largest turnarounds in the country following the disaster that happened. I'm very proud of that, and my role in that, I think anyone who took part of that should be very proud. I'm also a business owner. I started working when I was 14, 13, 12, raking leaves. I bought my first house at 24, had it paid off at 26. It was only $53,000. Turned that into a business and have been doing business since. I'm also an Army engineer and combat veteran. I've been in the Army engineers over 20 years. I currently am a squad leader in the 317th Engineer Construction Company, and I've been deployed multiple times. I'm very proud of that work as well. I'm running for state senate. Oh, wait. I'm also a husband and father, and I need to mention that because baby number 5 is coming on October 4th, right around the corner here. Yeah. And while I mentioned ethics reform and financial reform is a big part of my motivation, my children are why I do it at all. Making sure they have something to inherit that is better than what we have right now is absolutely critical, and it's absolutely why I'm running, and I think any understanding of me needs to start with that. Real quickly, I want to talk about some of the challenges we're facing in Illinois. COVID federal money is running out. We're projecting benefits for the next several years. We already have the #2 pension crisis in the nation, which has cratered for decades our ability to properly invest in infrastructure, in economic development, in education, in mental health, which we do terribly at. And it's greatly starkened the urban versus rural divide, which sometimes in Illinois is much bigger than the Republican versus Democratic divide, quite frankly. And that's something I want to help represent out here. Make sure our voices are heard, make sure we're addressing financial concerns and getting the state turned around. Alderman Ed Burke from Chicago, their longest-serving alderman, just reported to jail. Illinois' longest-serving speaker, currently about to go to trial. And so I want to tackle a number of the things in Springfield that I worked on as mayor. That's financial reform, pension reform, ethics reform, so our future budgets can properly invest in a state of Illinois that we're proud of, and that my children, post-college, as they enter their workforce, might want to stay in. So I humbly ask for your vote in November, even though I don't have an opponent, and I encourage you to stay involved and in touch with me, as I will be representing everybody in January the moment I'm sworn in. Thank you very much for coming out tonight and for all you do to make active self-government work. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Nicely done. And now we will transition to the House candidate. First, opening statements will be given by each candidate in ballot order. Each opening statement will last no more than 3 minutes. Second, I will ask the candidates questions, beginning in ballot order and rotating this order with each question. Responses will be held to 1 minute per candidate per question. Finally, closing statements will be given by each candidate in ballot order. Each closing statement will last no more than 2 minutes. Are we ready? Candidates, Let's get started. In ballot order, Brad, you have no more than 3 minutes for your opening statement. Thank you, Brad. Go.
Thank you, Dr. Hellmich. Thank you so much, Discover Dixon, and thank you all of you for being here. Thank you to my opponent for agreeing to do this. I'm so excited and honored to be here with you today. I'm State Representative Brad Fritts. I've had the honor and privilege of representing this district for the little over a year and a half now, and it truly has been an honor and a privilege. You know, I stand up here on this stage tonight with the same principles that I started it out with a little over 2 years ago when I announced my intent to run for rep. You know, the same thing. I grew up out here in rural Dixon, grew up on a farm, and my whole entire childhood I'd heard the same three things over and over again: to grow up, get an education, and leave the state of Illinois. I heard it over and over, and I get so many school groups down to the Capitol, and I make it my top priority to try to get out and talk to our students. And I tell this story, and I often tell them, I say, hey, raise your hand if you've ever heard those three things: to grow up, get an education, and leave the state of Illinois. If you've heard adults in your life say it. And almost every single kid in every single school group raises their hand. And I think to myself, how sad is that? You know, I grew up here, and I loved everything about growing up here. You know, I think to my time at the University of Illinois, where I was a major in agricultural and consumer economics, and we used to talk about the economic advantages that we have here in the state of Illinois. We have the city of Chicago, like it or not, which is an urban hub of the Midwest. We have the most fertile farm ground in the entire world. Every major rail line comes through our state. The Illinois and Mississippi rivers make us global trade partners. We should have so much money. We should have so many resources. We should be busting at the seams, but we're not. And why aren't we? Because of generations and generations of leadership that has misguided priorities like we have right now. We have one-party rule within the state of Illinois. You know, I'm here, and I've been here every day of my term fighting against the priorities of this district. The priority of to have an affordable cost of living, to have quality education, to have quality access to rural health care. All these things at their core seem very basic, but they're not. And so it has been an honor and a privilege to fight for these things down in Springfield. We have had an unbelievable team with so many great people who have helped us along the way, and I look forward to continuing that another 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. David, you have no more than 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you. My name is David Simpson, and I'm from the village of Shabana, where I'm also a trustee. I'm a 55-year resident of DeKalb County. I've lived in DeKalb County my whole life, and I've grown up there. I live there. I decided to live there and raise a family and grow old there. So right now, we're looking at a lot of things that concern me growing up and living over there. The cost of affordable housing comes to mind. Cost of education comes to mind, and there's a lot of things that we really need to tackle. I'm living there currently with my wife, my 2 dogs, and the oldest living cat possible, and we're looking at doing a lot of good things for the state. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We will now move to questions. We'll begin in ballot order and rotate this order with each question. Candidates, please hold your responses to 1 minute per question. Question number 1, begin with you, Brad. As you have traveled the district and have seen so many communities, what is your favorite local restaurant?
Well, I appreciate this question, and we have so many unbelievable restaurants across our community and our district, and I don't envy anybody who goes into that business, and I will say I found tonight that we do have so many incredible restaurants. When I put on my suit and found out this button's just a little more snug than I remembered it being this spring. But I would say over on the west side of our district by Morrison. I really enjoy Forest Inn a lot.
Thank you. David?
I would have to say there's a lot of favorites for me. Walton Tap, I like the food at Alley Loop, Kelly's in Sterling, Willie's over in Sterling. There are just so many restaurants to choose. What's more important for me is the fact that there's a lot of families out there that can't afford to go out to eat. Our food pantries are too busy, and I would like to start a small farm grant system so that we can help small food farmers get their products into local restaurants, into local grocery stores, and that works with Representative Canty's bills that get food into stores already. I think that's a great place to start. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2, and we'll begin with you, David. What are you going to do in regards to the state of Illinois having relatively high property taxes?
The high property taxes. Great question. So when it comes to property taxes, education is a top priority. One thing that we need to do is equalize funding for education across the state, and that is a very well-known theory and process that will lower property taxes all over the state.
Thank you. Brad?
Well, thank you so much. This is one of the number one concerns as I go through the district and talk to people on their minds is property taxes. And I think to really understand this, you have to know where property taxes come from. Property taxes are generated as a means of revenue for local government. And so that's where local governments get their money. And so for me, you know, what's really important here is to lower property taxes is the state pushing the state to hold up its end of the deal. Local Government Distributive Fund was a 10% of that tax was supposed to go to your local governments. And in that, you know, we went through a tough time in Illinois and a tough time in the economy. And so they robbed that. They robbed that, and now it hasn't been increased to 10% again. So when we start holding up our end of the deal, we need to also ensure that unfunded mandates come with money attached to them, because local governments, again,
Thank you,
property
Brad.
taxes is how they are able to incur revenue.
Thank you. The third question, and Brad, we begin with you. How do you propose balancing the state budget without compromising essential services or overburdening taxpayers?
Well, thank you so much for the question. Big concern, budget. It's the most important thing we do every year. I think we got to talk about how we got here first, though. This year, our majority party passed a $53.1 billion budget, the biggest budget in the history of the state of Illinois. From that, of that massive amount of money and that massive budget, our priorities are still underfunded. You know, our priorities of health care, our priorities of public safety, all these things are on the top of voters' minds, yet they're underfunded in this budget. What are we going to do to increase budget availability? How about the $1 billion that Illinois taxpayers are on the hook for a self-made migrant crisis? It is an absolute catastrophe that we are able to allocate $1 billion to people who aren't even citizens of this country, much less citizens of this state.
Thank you, Brad. David, same question.
Thank you. Illinois has seen 5 consecutive balanced budgets. We've seen 9 credit upgrades in the last few years, and we're on the right path. But we can do more to make sure that we don't overburden taxpayers, and one way to do this is to allow a graduated income tax plan that would rather take the burden off of the working class in greater Illinois. People in the district I talk to are often shocked that they learn that they're paying the same tax rate as wealthy people in Chicagoland. A truck driver or a nurse in our area should not be paying the same rate as a Chicago billionaire. That'd be one way to start.
Thank you. Next question, and we'll begin with you, David. Should public tax dollars go to public schools only and not to private schools?
Absolutely. Only public schools should be used with public tax dollars. We've seen our neighbors in Iowa try to fund private school vouchers with their public tax dollars, and it's been an absolute disaster. Their private schools, when they get their vouchers, they raise tuition, leaving a lot of kids out in the cold. When we give our tax dollars to public schools, it's an enormous mistake. Any politician who proposes doing so should not really be taken seriously.
Thank you. Brad, same question.
I support funding the education of all students within the state of Illinois. Every student who's here is someone who deserves to be prioritized. You know, one of the things that we can talk about with this, there's a variety of different ways, but I just want to talk about a program that was axed this year. We had a program in place called Invest in Kids. And Invest in Kids was an opportunity for people to get a 75% tax credit if they donated to a private or parochial school. This is money that normally would not be going towards education. It is something that was an unbelievable program that gave people who came from unfortunate situations or underserved situations quality access to the same education as people who could afford it. This was an unbelievable program, and the majority party, which speaks about, you know, equality and building up minority communities, those are the people that were hit the hardest by letting this thing go off the books, and it's a dirty shame.
Brad, we'll start with you. Illinois passed a new education funding formula in 2017, but recently some education groups have said that the current levels of funding are not keeping pace with inflation. Do you support further increases in school funding, and if so, where would you find the additional dollars?
Absolutely, I do. I support, you know, as much funding as we can afford to go on to educate the next generations of Illinois students. Educating Illinois students goes on to becoming educating an Illinois workforce. And it is so incredibly important to do so. But again, it's back to misplaced priorities. Here we go again, back to talking about our budget. Once again, we have $1 billion that is being spent this year to fund the health care of non-citizens, people who aren't even citizens of this country, much less citizens of the state, while we're letting our priority of our youth go underfunded, and it's a dirty, rotten shame.
Thank you. David, same question.
Sure. Senate Bill 1 back in 2017 was intended to equalize funding across the state, so students in Winnetka and, say, Oak Park would get the same funding as students in Amboy or Mendota or Dixon. It will give every student across the state to get an equal chance at a quality education. More dollars will come from those larger school districts to help us in rural Illinois. That needs to be implemented, needs to get started, and we need to get on that path of equalized and equal funding formula.
Thank you. David, you first with this one. Both the Chicago Bears and the Chicago White Sox have been publicly discussing concepts for building new stadiums. Would you support any state funding for professional sports stadiums?
There is, I haven't talked to a single voter that says, yes, I want to spend my tax dollars on a stadium. The Reinsdorf family and McCaskey family can afford to build their own stadiums. It'll also be nice if they would focus on putting winning products on the field instead of building new stadiums, so I would like to see that.
Thank you. Brad, same question.
Would I support any state funding for these stadiums? Absolutely, as long as they're in the 74th district.
Thank you. As a quick follow-up, and we'll start with you with a follow-up, Dave, and go to Brad. As a follow-up to regarding the Bears have lost the last 10 games to the Green Bay Packers. Do you agree that the Packers will sweep the Bears again this year?
No.
David?
No. They will
Brad?
not sweep the Bears.
I sure hope not, but last week wasn't very promising.
Thank you. Next question, Brad, you're first. What specific legislation will you sponsor to reduce the cost of housing?
I appreciate this question so much. This is something that's near and dear to my heart as a young guy. A year and a half ago, I had the ability to go and buy my first home, and there's so many great things that come from home ownership, but there's a lot of expenses that come around with it too. Just this last winter, my furnace went out in the middle of the winter. It had an older furnace, and that was a $8,000 expense for a new furnace. And, luckily I had some savings that I could dip into to be able to do it, but not everybody has those same opportunities. And so, I think as we talk about, a lot of the housing issues come as a result of inflation. But inflation's mostly a federal problem. What we can talk about right here in the state of Illinois is, again, our high property taxes, our LGDF not being funded, because these are incredible things that become a burden after the fact of home ownership.
Thank you, Brad. David, same question.
So, one thing we know for sure is that interest rates for mortgages, when they go down, will increase the price of homes. We saw that in the housing bubble in the early 2000s. When interest rates go up, the prices will stay the same, if not come down. In my small village in Shabana, where everyone asks for affordable housing, the median income is $60,000. 2.5 times that income creates a $150,000 house. Building a house for $150,000 can be done, but without the land, the streets, and the sewer, unfortunately, you need all those things for a house. I would sponsor legislation to help municipalities obtain land grants for improvements, infrastructure, the land itself. There are many successful HUD projects going out throughout the state. There's one I've been watching over in Aurora going on right now over the last year.
Thank you, David.
All right.
David, this goes to you first. What is your stance on expanding early childhood education programs and support for providers? And what specific legislation will you sponsor to reduce the cost of child care?
It's a good question. So I'm a firm believer in early childhood education. The state programs that are out there for private centers help reduce the cost itself, but yet it's very costly to have daycare. There's so many issues surrounding daycare, including losing a good employee to not having child care available to them. And that's a subject that we really need to tackle. There's also the idea that women won't be treated equally until we can have a solution to this problem.
Thank you. Brad, same question.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love this question. I'm a huge proponent of early childhood education in our area and our district. The governor loves to talk about this issue, and he often says, how can we bring everyone have access to affordable child care? And I often push back on him, because in our rural communities, forget the affordability portion, we don't even have access to child care, period. Not to mention affordable child care. So this is something that's a major priority to me. I supported the creation of the Department of Early Childhood Education. I look forward to seeing the things that they can do through that department, because working with DCFS right now is an absolute catastrophe. They have put in so many different roadblocks in place that make it hard for people to obtain licenses, that backlog them for months on getting their stuff processed. So when we can get these roadblocks out of the way, we'll have the ability to have more providers, and more providers will drive down costs. It's a supply and demand ratio.
Okay, Brad, we start with you. The next question. Do you believe that Donald Trump actually won the 2020 presidential election, and why?
No, I don't, or he'd be president right now. The one thing I will say about this is, I think it's more troubling of why we're asking this question. And that's a big problem for me, and I think something that we can focus on here at a state level. We're asking this question because millions of people don't believe that that's the case, and they don't believe that that's the case because of the security of their election system. In what world do you go to get on an airplane and they say, "Sir, can you please sign here, and if your signature matches, we'll let you on the plane"? They don't say that. They ask for your identification. You can't even go into the store and buy a case of beer without them asking for your ID, or at least in my case, as a young guy, I can't. But the reality of the situation is we need to secure our elections, because when the American people and the people of Illinois understand that they have a secure election, none of these things are even a question.
Thank you. David, same question?
Well, I don't believe he won the election. He lost. His campaign lost dozens of cases in front of judges that were appointed by Republicans. Elections are run at the local level, and our Lee County clerk does a fantastic job running the local elections for Lee County. Throughout the country, county clerks do very similar things. We have a lot of checks and balances through our election system, and those need to be looked at as being very secure. We really work hard at making sure that those are legit. They do a great job for every political party, and anyone who really attacks that really should be ashamed of themselves.
Thank you. David, the last two governors of Illinois have been independently wealthy and have contributed millions toward their own campaigns. How do campaign finances affect Illinois' election, and would you propose any changes to the current rules?
I would. That's the short answer. Individuals or families who are wealthier have a greater advantage when it comes to essentially stacking the deck. They can, for them or their party. We've seen it recently. There should be a cap on individual contributions, a cap on contributions to their campaigns as well. Right now, there are a lot of loopholes that essentially allow for unlimited contributions. We should hard cap contribution levels so loopholes don't come into play.
Thank you. Brad, same question.
Thank you. When we follow the law that is in place and the disclosure system that we have in place that binds elections and the funding for them, we have a good system that's in place. What happens is, as our Mayor Arellano talked about prior, we have a speaker who's on trial right now because he wasn't following those. He was going after and using the political process to help make himself independently wealthy. And that's when we have a real serious problem here. We need to talk about ethics reform more so than campaign finance reform. It's time to get down to basics with this. If someone is a government employee, they're given the people's trust, they're elected official, and they go to jail, they should never receive their pension. If somebody is in there for an extended period of time, we need to support term limits to get them out of their leadership positions, because those leadership positions are when you can prop yourself up.
Okay, Brad, we'll start with you on the next question. Most communities across our area have seen flat or declining populations over the past few decades. What can be done to attract new people to move to rural communities like ours?
Thank you so much. This has been the focus of the last year and a half that I've been in office. We have to do everything to be able to market this area to people. But in order to market this area to people, we have to have basic necessities in place. We have to have quality education. We have to have access to child care. But one of the biggest things is we have to have access to rural health care. One of the things that we're seeing right here in our own hometown, in my own hometown of Dixon, right here where we are tonight, is a hospital going through a merger because of Medicaid reimbursement rates. And that's a big reason. The state not funding their Medicaid reimbursement rates and having them be incredibly low. Right now, We continue to see across the whole state of Illinois OB deserts. You go from Dixon, Sterling to Peoria and Ottawa to Geneseo without having an OB provider. People who settle in the middle could have 50 minutes one direction with a spouse in labor. It's unacceptable that we don't have that kind of health care here in the
Thank
rural
you, Brad.
Illinois. Thank you.
David, same question.
Investing in jobs and economic growth. Families move where the jobs are. It's just really that simple. Rural communities deserve the same economic development opportunities we give suburbs and cities. I would definitely work with the grant system to help fund rural communities, and to speak about the grant system, in Illinois it's very broken. We need to have if we're going to live with the grant system, rural communities need to have a grant writer supplied to them who knows how to cut the red tape and get through the labyrinth of issues that cause rural grants not to go through. Plus, we need to change some of the rules, the population issues that we have to address with grants.
Thank you. David, what is your plan to promote workforce development in our area, particularly in high-demand industries like technology, healthcare, and manufacturing?
It's a good question. Investing in education and programs like local career centers to help train high school students to get the jobs of tomorrow would be a great start. Investing in more in our community colleges would help a great deal as well. Sauk Valley Community College has a great nursing program, something that's missing in a lot of other areas today. Imagine what we could do with more funding, which would allow them to accept more students and even train more nurses, also helping the healthcare shortage that we have today.
Thank you. Brad, same question.
Thank you so much for the question. I think tonight we finally found something that my opponent and I really agree on here, and that is, investing in the gold mine of resources that we have here in our communities. We have 3 unbelievable resources in this district. We have Sauk, we have Kish, and we have Illinois Valley Community College, and these are unbelievable areas. And I'm not just saying that because of our great moderator here tonight, but they have so much incredible programming that is geared to address all of these issues. So what's my plan with it? I want to make sure that they're adequately funded to be able to do the things that that they can do to educate our workforce. I want to be able to sit down and have continued conversations with them to make sure that our education curriculum aligns with our workforce needs here within our communities. And I think that it's incredibly important to keep families in these schools so that we can have them here for generations to come.
Thank you, Brad. Brad, how specifically do you plan to support small businesses and entrepreneurs?
Great question. It comes down to 2 very simple things. It's about lowering taxes and keeping our tax rates low, and it's about removing unnecessary regulation that gets in the way of them being able to start up and prosper. And the short answer of the whole thing is I have been. I had a perfect score with the National Federation of Independent Business in this last 2 years. I was also named Illinois Legislative Freshman of the Year by the Illinois Chamber of Commerce, which was an award I was humbled to receive. But all these just show a proven record of fighting for business and continuing to let them prosper here in Illinois and forwarding for growth in the future.
Thank you. David, same question.
That's a good question. I think small businesses are the backbone of local economies, and they're worth investing in. Any bills proposed to increase small business growth and allow them to compete with corporations would be a win for Illinois. We can start with tax credits for startup businesses and local businesses that expand their business by hiring local workers. There are also grant opportunities for small businesses throughout the state. What we really need, again, going back to having a grant writer to help those businesses and those individuals get those grants so they can have their startup, and that would be something that we need to really focus on. Thank you.
Thank you. David, partisanship and polarization seem to be increasingly present in politics. Please give an example of an issue where you take a different position from your political party's position.
So that is an interesting question, because right now, being a trustee in Shabana and living in Shabana, I live an eighth of a mile or a quarter mile away from the state park, and the Shabana Lake State Park is about to be surrendered to the Potawatomi Indian tribe. And I'm not against the Potawatomi Indian tribe, but I do want to protect our state park to be a state park. There's a lot of concerns about the economic impact that will have on the village of Shabana. What's going to happen, there's no questions, and it's a very incomplete bill. We will still be spending money on the park after it's surrendered to the Potawatomi tribe, and those questions need to be answered, and we need to have a very complete bill. The state park brings over 800,000 people to my village every year, and this one is very personal to me, and I don't want to see the state of Illinois getting stuck on the hook for taxpayers for a year, and this is something I absolutely do not agree with. Thank you.
Brad, same question.
Well, thank you. That was incredible. It was almost like you read my talking points from the House floor. You know, I would say my big thing is, for me, it's about engaging youth and moving forward. You know, we have to engage the youth in our community. I was elected as the youngest person to ever serve in the Illinois House of Representatives, and it's been an unbelievable honor to be able to do so. And with that, you know, I hear so many young adults talk about, oh, you know, I thought the Democratic Party was the only one that young people belong to. But it's great to see somebody who's a Republican come out and put themselves out there. And so I really admire the work that they do to engage the youth, and I want to continue to do that, because here in the state of Illinois, we need young people. We need young leaders to step up and forge a better path forward than the one we were given.
Brad, you go first. In regards to polarization, how do you plan to engage all of your local constituents, no matter their political beliefs, when making decisions on policies?
Absolutely. For me, it's not a plan. It's something that I've been doing. I have had an incredible outreach team in place, and we have done so many amazing events across the district. And my favorite is our coffee and conversation event. You know, if a lot of times in politics, you can get caught in your bubble, and you know, nobody really ever calls your district office to say, "Hey, Brad, you're doing a heck of a job." They call with, you know, questions, comments, concerns, and I think in my mind, you know, I have the best plan forward and I'm in line with the district. But that isn't always the case, and so I create an opportunity a little bit more, about once a week in the summertime, for people to come and sit at a local restaurant to have coffee with me and to engage on those issues. And I invite anyone and everyone to come out to them, because they really are a great opportunity for me to understand what your needs are so that I can properly represent them down in our state capitol.
Thank you, Brad. David, same question.
Well, I can say that I'm a Democrat, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be a yes man for my party. I will make myself accessible for the people of the 74th District. I will vote in their best interests, because I will listen to their concerns, even when voting in their best interest goes against my party. I can promise that I will not be your typical representative who goes to Springfield and votes 80% of the time with their party. I will do what's best for our district.
Thank you. David, what is something you admire about your opponent?
Well, I have to say that he has the ambition to pursue a job that's usually held by people that have more life experiences.
Thank you. Brad, same question.
I would just like to say, you know, I admire you for putting yourself on the ballot. You know, this is really tough. You know, when my Uncle John came to me and talked to me about running for office, I had an idea because I'd grown up around it, but I never really had a clue of how intense this process is. You have people who love you, you have people you hate you, and everybody in between. And so, this is a really intense process, and I respect and admire anyone who's willing to put their name on a ballot and engage in the process in this way.
Thank you, Brad. Okay, our final question before closing statement. Brad, what is something you admire about your opponent's political party?
Something that I admire is the way the Democrats are unified and they come out in lockstep. As Republicans, so often we all believe that we're right on the issues and we fight out a lot in public. And, my opponent has talked a little bit tonight about, he isn't going to follow in lockstep with them, but it's going to happen. I've witnessed it with my own eyes. There's so many members of the House Democratic Caucus who sit there and they can't believe that the most progressive leftist policy in the world is even up on the board being taken for a vote. And you watch them when the bell goes off and ding, have all voted who wish, have all voted who wish, and 78 votes go up on that board. And so, I admire parts of that they're able to get people in line and to really work on, in their mind, pushing the state to a better direction.
Thank you, Brad. David, same question?
I would have to say that Republicans are very good at messaging.
Thank you. Let's move on to closing statements. In ballot order, Brad, you have no more than 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you so much. Thank you again to everyone for coming out tonight. This has been a really good opportunity to have some conversation about policy prior to this. I just want to tell you that it has been an incredible honor to serve you the last 2 years as your state representative. We have put together an incredible team who have done some amazing things, who have gone out to serve this district, who continue to go out of their way to serve this district and the people in it. We've been able to do some amazing things through our office, and for that I'm incredibly grateful. I tell this a lot, and it brings tears to my eyes every time, but every time I go to Springfield, I come into Springfield on Capitol Avenue, and any of you who've ever been to Springfield, Capitol Avenue tees right into the Capitol building, and there's a bazillion stoplights along the way. And I go that way, and as I'm stopped at the stoplights, I'm gawking up at the most beautiful building in the state of Illinois. And that most beautiful building in the state of Illinois has a desk in it, and that desk has my name on it. And it only has my name on it because 108,500 people feel that I'm the best person to make decisions on their behalf. And that experience is incredibly humbling. It's something I don't take for granted, and it's something I think about every single time I go into that Capitol building and I press my button. There's never been a vote that I've taken where I haven't felt that it is in the best interest of this district. It has been the honor and privilege of a lifetime to serve you this last year and a half, coming up on 2 years, and with your support, I look forward to representing you and serving you for another 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. David, you have no more than 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you. Again, I'm David Simpson, and I'm from the village of Shabana. I grew up in DeKalb County. I've lived through a lot of experiences in my life. Growing up with poverty, losing a house to fire, losing a business to a car accident. I've experienced a lot of highs, but a lot of lows. And those life experiences have shaped the views and concerns that I have. And those same concerns and views go through the entire district. I talk to voters all the time who have those same concerns: healthcare, education, mental health, homelessness, affordable housing. We have a lot of things to tackle, and I bring life experience to that position. I will go to going to Springfield would be a great honor. I agree with that. I want to go there to create opportunities. And if I had to put a theme on my campaign, it would be opportunities. I want to create opportunities for people who didn't have what I had, or have less than what I have right now, or have more than what I have, and they just need a little bit of a helping hand. We need to create opportunities for people throughout the entire district, whether it's owning a business or health care or having food security. If you ever go to a food bank and help out, you'll see working families coming in there that can't afford to put food on their own table, and that's just wrong. We have a lot of challenges, and we can tackle those challenges. I'm David Simpson. I hope you'll vote for me this coming November.
Thank you, David. That concludes tonight's candidate forum sponsored by Discover Dixon. Candidates, nicely done, and thank you for having the conviction and courage to run in this important election. Thank you to the Dixon Historic Theater and all the volunteers who made tonight possible. Now, everyone, please participate fully in our democracy by voting November 5th or in pre-election day voting. Good night.